Okay, this lecture is going to be on the endocrine system. The endocrine system is anything that involves glands. We'll be talking a lot about glands and the hormones that are associated with those glands. So get out a piece of paper from class that organizes. We're going to look at the gland, the type of hormone that's released, and what it does. Okay, so there's a lot of vocabulary with this unit, a little bit more bio-based, but we'll need to know what the gland is, where it's at, what it does, the hormones it secretes, and what that hormone does. All right, a little bit complicated, so we'll be spending some time on this in class as well. So no need to write any of this down right here. We'll be going over it in depth. What I need you to know about the endocrine system right now is this is the body's slow way of communication. These are hormones that are released into your blood, right? So think about your blood flow and how long it takes from it's getting from your brain to your body. It's not that long, but it also, these are tiny little messengers, so it takes a while to accumulate, to build up, and as a way of communicating is very slow, especially compared with like reflexes we talked about and how fast neurons are able to communicate. So endocrine, slow glands. Let's start with our first gland here, the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is located in your brain. All right, it secretes a lot of different hormones, some of which those affect other glands. So it's considered like the master gland. It is in charge of everything else. So some of the hormones released there are actually go to other glands to release more hormones and a positive feedback. But your pituitary in your brain, it's located right underneath the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is actually in charge of the pituitary. So hypothalamus, part of your brain, remember hypo meaning above the thalamus, so it's above the thalamus, and it's my part of my brain that controls the pituitary gland. It's in charge of the master gland, right? My thyroid gland, your thyroid's in your neck here. Sometimes you can actually, doctors will feel right here to see if they can feel it. Your thyroid gland, you're going to talk about metabolism, so growth. Your parathyroid, so para, part of your thyroids. Those are looking at the calcium levels in your blood. We're going to take more in-depth notes on these later. Right now I just want you to get a picture of the body because I don't have a body on the rest of the slides and where they're located. The adrenal glands are part of your fight or flight response that we talked about. So they're the ones that kick in the hormones that are going to get you excited and maybe run away or to fight or to run away. So you're looking at things that excite your body or that trigger that. Your pancreas is something that regulates glucose in your body. Again, those glands. And then for our sex glands, so if male testes, the female is going to be the ovaries. Okay, so these are the glands that we'll be looking at. These are all part of the endocrine system because there's hormones that are released into the body. Okay, so a hormone, just a brief definition, it's a chemical messenger. So think of like a messenger that it's carrying a message to other places in your body. They're mostly manufactured, that means made by endocrine glands. So my glands make hormones, and that they are produced in one tissue but affect another. So something that's maybe produced in the pancreas affects other places in the body. So I'm produced here, this tissue, but it goes to other places in your body. Same thing with your pituitary. All of these chemical messengers, hormones that are made here affect the entire body, not necessarily just the tissue where it's made. All right, so the pituitary gland we'll start with. That is the master gland of the body. Like I said, the hypothalamus controls the pituitary, but is the master gland. It actually has 3 parts. All right, so we'll talk about those 3 different lobes. You can kind of see here. So here's my hypothalamus. My pituitary gland is located right underneath it, and it has 3 different sections. I can see 2 of them here. And it regulates metabolism by stimulating other glands. So it releases things to other glands to release more. All right, the pituitary gland, this hypothalamus, it's in my midbrain. All right, so it's kind of like in the middle of my head. It releases, like I said, hormones into the bloodstream to go to other places. Let's talk about the 3 different lobes. The anterior lobe, this releases something called somatotrophic. This is your growth hormone. So somatotrophic, I want you to think growth. So there are times in your body or in your life where you go through growth spurts. That's because the somatotrophic hormone is released more. Now, if you're an extreme, like something who's a midget or a dwarf or a giant, so those kind of extremes, you either have too much of that growth hormone or you have too little of the somatotrophic hormone. So growth, somatotrophic, right? So your anterior lobe, your ant lobe, pituitary gland is in charge of growth. other hormones that are released from your pituitary gland. You have your THS, your ACTH, and your gonadotrophic. Okay, so memorizing things, these will work on in class, but let's look at what they do. So the THS, this is my thyroid stimulating hormone. So what gland do you think this hormone activates? My answer is going to be here. It goes to my thyroid gland. So made in the pituitary gland goes to my thyroid gland to produce hormones there. The adrenocorticotropic hormone, that triggers manufactures secretion to the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands here, so thyroid, adrenal, and then my gonadotrophic hormones, think gonads, that's going to the sexual glands, so either the testes or the ovaries, all right? So here are my other hormones made in the pituitary that affect other glands: thyroid, adrenal, gonads. My posterior is going to be my ADH and my oxytocin. ADH, antidiuretic. Diuretic, that means your water level. So if you ever heard of like a diuretic, that means that it like gets the water out of your body. And then so we're regulating water. And then the oxytocin, this is mostly associated with labor. So when oxytocin is released in women who are pregnant, it pushes them into labor. But it's also in charge of looking at smooth muscles of your stomach, so controlling contractions of smooth muscles. Oh, this is just a quick little slide that talks about the somatotrophic growth hormone. This is the tallest man. He's 8'11". This is the shortest man. He was 23 inches, and this is a TV host. So both talking about things that went wrong with the pituitary gland. All right, so keep going. Oh, and delete that slide. We already talked about that. So oxytocin stimulating muscles during labor, and then milk afterwards, and then my growth hormone stimulating development of bones and muscles. Okay, so let's talk about our adrenal. So remember your adrenal glands, they're part of the endocrine, they're just above your kidneys, so they're to the side. They're a pair. So how many glands, adrenal glands do we have? We have 2 because we have 2 kidneys. All right, they're the ones that are going to secrete everything that's associated with my fight or flight. So adrenaline. Remember we talked about like pumping your body up to run away. Noradrenaline, which helps to arouse your body in times of stress. So sometimes your body goes into really stressful situations. Your noradrenaline it's similar to adrenaline, but it's in times of stress that kind of kick you out of it. And then cortisol, this is talking about, again, with stress. A lot of the stress hormones are released in your adrenal glands, all right? So part of your, or just above your kidneys. So cortisol, the noradrenaline, and then adrenaline, all in times of stress. Don't think about necessarily, so stress can be mental stress, so being stressed out mentally, but it also can be physical stress. This is when my hormones are going to be released. In the pancreas, so we talked about, so our adrenal glands, kidneys, my pancreas, that's going to be what's going to be my liver. So it's going to decrease blood sugar, and then the glucagon is what increases blood sugar levels. So we're talking about glucose. So insulin, I feel like people are pretty familiar with that from if someone's diabetic, they either have too much insulin or too little. Because insulin is a hormone that decreases blood sugar. All right, so insulin, what it does is it takes the sugar from the blood and it moves it into cells, or it stores it. So my insulin is going to decrease blood sugar by taking sugar out. My glucagon is what increases blood sugar. So my glucagon hormone attaches and says we need more sugar in the system. So see how the two kind of counterbalance, all right? So they balance each other out. So I might have insulin released when I need to decrease blood sugar, and then I need glucagon released when I need to increase blood sugar, all right? So they're released under different situations. Again, both of those located in the pancreas. And then my thyroid gland, the last one, we kind of went backwards. So we went pituitary, and then we talked about our adrenal glands, and then our pancreas. Now we're moving back up to our body to our thyroid. This is my largest gland in my body, even bigger than the pituitary that regulates it. It's located by your trachea, your larynx, and your throat, and it produces thyroxine. So this is the hormone that it produces. So the thyroid, again, it's with growth, and we talked about the hormones that it releases there. But if there's an oversupply of thyroxine, a person becomes hyperactive. So if I have too much thyroxine, it increases levels, becomes hyperactive. If there's an undersupply, a person feels lazy. So perhaps if like you've thought about like people have talked to me, they have a thyroid disorder. Usually we're talking about this thyroxine. Overactive and underactive might be something that's wrong with our thyroid gland. So I have a hyper or an active thyroid gland versus a low producing thyroid gland. Last one. So these are our sex glands, gonads. Remember we talked about that our pituitary gland releases the hormone that goes to the gonads. So when your bodies hit puberty, there's actually, that means that there's enough of your pituitary gland that's releasing enough of those the hormones to go to your gonads to start developing. Okay, so if females, our hormone's going to be estrogen, right? So the female sex hormone is estrogen because that's where our ovaries, that makes our ovaries develop, which releases eggs. And then the male sex hormone is going to be androgen, and that's going to the testes to release sperm. Okay, the gonads, remember we talked about up here with the gonadotrophic. I'm going to find it real quick. Right here. So my pituitary, remember it secretes hormones that go to other places. So look at this again. So it's going to my thyroids, my adrenal, my pancreas, and then the testes and the ovaries. Okay? We will work on memorizing your chart of hormones, glands, and what they do in our body in class.